Hello everybody, welcome back. Let's have a quick look at ICP, just real quick. So I made a video on it yesterday looking for extended targets, but on the short-term time frames things have perked out quite well. And again, most of these charts that we're going to look at, and we should be looking at really, are battles fought on the 4-hourly, and we really should be looking at things versus their Bitcoin pairs, because that's the main goal, isn't it here? Altcoins really, if anything, are the best way to outperform Bitcoin and live the crypto dream. So this again, for the record, is a bit of a so far a bit of an underwater trade of mine, and I think for the most people who've been trading ICP, it's going to be pretty much underwater. My original buy entry was around $42, which is about 700 sats. You know, so technically, I'm feeling the pressure, feeling the pain, and I'm trying to sell myself some hopium here. Technically, I'm 14% down versus its Bitcoin pair, which is obviously not where I want to be. I want to be increasing my Bitcoin amount, not decreasing it, and this has unfortunately been the case. But you know, I have incrementally bought on the way down, because I do believe that we're getting close to a bottom, even though, you know, the bottom just continues to print more bottoms. Look, on the short-term time frames that we've just noticed, and in fact we'll just go back to it rather than pouring my life story out to you there about my terrible trades. But yeah, we've reclaimed a 200 exponential, and this is something that a lot of coins haven't been able to do yet. In fact, for the most part, everything is in a bearish setup. This isn't bearish, right? This is actually pretty good. Now, we've come up to, on the first pass, get rejected from the 200 exponential. That's normal. In fact, we saw that over here with Bitcoin. This is what Bitcoin did. It came up to a 200 exponential, just can't take it, broke all the way back down. Well, ICP, that's what you'd expect on the first, especially something like ICP, which is just, you know, extreme weakness after weakness. But yeah, that's the first thing you'd expect to happen when you come up to test it. That's a super resistance, and that's what you'd expect. This also should have been a super support, like it was over here. Couldn't quite take it, went down below it, and unfortunately, in true ICP fashion, turned it into a bloody resistance again, didn't it? Anyway, it's flipped that again. We've moved up, we've reclaimed it now, came down for a bullish retest, and now we've actually got the 200 exponential and the 10 exponential crossing each other, looking pretty good. Now, obviously, we can't go, expecting a great deal more from this in the short term, right? I am very bullish on this in the long term. I think this is a great coin to be holding, despite what it looks like on the long term. I think when it comes down to bottom buys, this was a decent bottom buy in my opinion, even at the level I bought it at. Even though I'm 14% down at the moment, but I still think it was worth a good shot at that level. And I think this is one of the reasons I've been incrementally buying it more and more and more, because I think it's just getting more and more oversold to the point where when the market, if and when the market does finally turn around, this is going to go into an actual decent uptrend, similar to the one that we saw with EOS last year. So yeah, we're talking about 300, 400, 500% move from its low. That would be versus its tether pairing. We'll have to see what that means for it in its Bitcoin pairing. But I still think it's going to go into a decent tear up. And actually, surprisingly, when we zoom out of the overall market, here we have ICP that's beginning a potential uptrend versus Bitcoin, which is pretty impressive. If you were to look at this, you couldn't call it an uptrend yet, not a strong one, but it's beginning to look more and more like one actually. So that's just it on the 4-hourly. We move it to a 12-hourly, because this isn't the oldest chart in the world, right? So because it's not very old, that 12-hourly does have some kind of relevance to it. And this area is marked off here. This is the 650, we'll call it, area of major support. And this does go back, since more or less since its initial big breakdown. Reclaiming this is not just a horizontal trend line of significance, but it's also above the cloud, and being above the cloud, which more or less does dissipate between 680 and 650, allows for one of the best signals you could hope for a large move to kick in. We've already got a green portion of the cloud, so that's one. You've got 4 components to this indicator. You've got one portion here, green cloud forming, 2, which is a conversion baseline cross anywhere, and we got one of those quite a while ago. We've got one of those over here. Now all we need to see is the candle and this Chiku span, this little green Chiku span, close above the cloud, and that will allow it to actually have a big push Doesn't mean that the trend will continue up forever. It just means that it'll have a big push, and that's all going to take place more or less between the 640 to 680 sat zone. When, you know, if we do it sooner, it's going to have to be above this portion of the cloud over here where the Chiku span is. So we're talking 680 sats. If it takes a little bit more time, no big deal. The cloud is dissipating, so this signal will take place at lower sats the longer this takes to form. So it does look quite promising, although that signal is not formed. We've got 2 of the 4 components for that signal to kick in. And if we go over to the daily, at the moment the daily does show that we're at a particularly strong resistance, and so we should expect that at least for today this is enough. This is enough for us, and a pullback is probably going to be required at this exact level, to be honest with you, for its sats. That's the 50 exponential, the 50 simple. They're pretty strong, to be honest with you. And for any coin, for any chart, for anything, I would expect at least on the first attempt to be rejected from there, as we were here, and probably here. So don't expect the moon from this immediately, but it is looking relatively promising. And I know that there's been many false promises presented, probably throughout the entire of crypto YouTube and Twitter's history when it comes to ICP, but I'm trying to be more realistic, you know, and like I say, I have to admit, you know, my entry point was pretty, it wasn't exact, of course not, and it may actually end up being a failed trade, but for the moment there are telltale signs that this actually was the bottom this time round. But again, we've not gone into an official uptrend at the moment, and with Bitcoin looking like it wants to come down, and us being at a resistance, then expect at least for today and maybe for the rest of this week further downside. But the 4-hourly is where we should focus our attention on, and you know, if we can remain above areas of 570, which 570 sats, if we can remain above there, then this will likely go into an uptrend, probably over the next few weeks. But again, we're talking signals that haven't yet been generated. Let's see where we are in 2 weeks for ICP, and if we remain above 570, preferably higher than that, but 570 being the minimum, then we are looking for confirmation of what will be an uptrend versus Bitcoin, and we'll see how savage it can be. Like I say, this is just one portion. The 12-hourly is brewing a signal which would allow for a big push up, which could bring us back up to 750 or maybe even more. And it's at that stage where we start to get really interested in what would be a continued trend, because we'd be above lots of areas of significance and essentially being an uptrend at that point. So I am going to leave it with you there. Let's not get too excited. Like I say, at the moment it do look like we're at resistance, but over the next couple of weeks we're very interested to see how this one plays out over the 4-hourly chart, and then transpires into the 12-hourly, where that big signal will be generated for a big push up. Right, I'll leave it with you there, guys. Thanks for watching. All the best. Take it easy.